Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban delivered a strong rebuke to Ukraine's EU aspirations, asserting that Hungary holds the final say. Speaking at his annual State of the Nation address, Orban outright rejected Kyiv's hopes of joining the European Union, declaring that without Hungary's consent, Ukraine's bid is doomed.
Will it be a member of the European Union? That will be decided by the Hungarians. Against the will of Hungary and the Hungarians, Ukraine will never be a member of the European Union.
Orban downplayed Ukraine's sovereignty, dismissing it as merely a territory rather than an independent nation. He argued that the ongoing conflict is less about Ukraine itself and more about NATO's attempt to take control of this geopolitical buffer zone. According to him, the West's strategy has backfired, and Ukraine, what remains of it, will revert to its role as a neutral barrier between Russia and NATO.
The war, in fact, is not even about Ukraine, but about the territory called Ukraine, which until now has been a buffer zone, a buffer state between NATO and Russia, being placed under the auspices of NATO.
As the EU's most vocal critic of Ukraine's membership bid, Orban has consistently positioned himself as a major roadblock to European support for Kyiv. His stance aligns him closely with Moscow, making him the EU leader most resistant to aiding Ukraine in its fight against Russia's invasion. He has frequently condemned EU sanctions on Russia and even threatened to veto them. Yet he has ultimately voted in favor of the measures, albeit reluctantly. While Hungary, as a member of both the EU and NATO, has provided refuge to displaced Ukrainians, it has simultaneously obstructed financial aid to Kyiv. Instead, Budapest has continued strengthening economic and energy ties with Moscow, despite the ongoing war. Orban doubled down on his skepticism of Ukraine's statehood, stating that the war was never truly about the country itself, but rather its strategic position between Russia and NATO. He insisted that Ukraine, once the fighting ends, will return to its status as a buffer zone and will never gain NATO membership.
Ukraine, or what remains of it, will again become a buffer zone. It will not be a NATO member.
His remarks closely echoed statements from officials within US President Donald Trump's administration who have suggested that Ukraine should abandon its ambitions of joining NATO if it hopes to achieve lasting security. Orban's defiant speech solidified his role as the biggest hurdle to Ukraine's European ambitions. While other EU leaders deliberate Kyiv's future, he made his position clear. Without Hungary's approval, Ukraine's path to EU integration is a dead end.